Hello, hello. I've got a question for you. Have you ever felt unstable, like internally, a little wobbly, a little unsettled, right? Have you ever felt like inside it was like a fragile house of cards, not to mention maybe outside, right? If one thing goes wrong, the whole house of cards can fall down, not just outside in your lifestyle, but inside too. Have you ever felt that? A little unstable, a little unsettled, right? Maybe even a little wobbly in who you are? Well, I want you to consider what are you measuring? Okay? Like, are you measuring your worth? And is it your worth that's feeling a little wavering? Is it your success? Is it your outcome? Is it your enoughness? Like, what are you measuring that makes you feel a little unsettled, a little wavering, a little wobbly on the inside versus rooted, secure, right? Safe. And today I want to talk about not just what are you measuring, but more importantly, how are you measuring? We're going to talk about a vertical measuring stick versus a horizontal measuring stick. And I heard this from a coach that I listened to, and it just was such a great analogy to so many of the things that I teach that I had to take it. So shout out to Jody Moore. I heard this on one of her podcasts and I absolutely loved it. So, most of us are walking around with a vertical measuring stick, right? Like measuring yourself up to, or measuring yourself against other people, or measuring yourself against yourself, right? Maybe you are measuring yourself against your own expectations, your own standards, or maybe it's the world standards, or measuring yourself against results, right? Or a timeline, or these expectations. What are you measuring it against? And what are you like making it mean about you as a human, as someone that is of value, right? What are you making it mean about your enoughness? These are all really great questions I want you to think about and really dig into today, okay? So, I want to describe kind of the vertical measuring stick because when we measure ourselves, whether it's against our own expectations and our own standards, or whether it is, so whether it's internal expectations and standards, or even whether it is external standards, the world standards, right? Or, you're comparing yourself to other people or other women or just that comparison game, right? When we measure from a vertical measuring stick, I can tell you from personal experience, it ends in shame. It ends in burnout. It ends in the hustle and the grind. It ends in disconnection in relationships, right? And so I want you to think about this vertical measuring stick. It sounds a lot like if I do enough, then I'll be enough. Or if I'm doing good, then I am good. It might sound like comparison to others, right? Or it's comparison to yourself, where you think you should be, right? Like who says? Where does all of this come from? And I want you to really think about that for yourself. If you do, or when you do feel wobbly on the inside, unsettled, right? Restless on the inside, where is that coming from? Like what what are you measuring, right? What is on the line? Is it your identity on the line? Is it your worth on the line? I want you to think about this, right? When we measure ourselves on a vertical measuring stick, so many times we're either, especially in comparison with other people, we're constantly, right, like comparing and measuring up. So we're either better than or we're less than, right? Maybe for you, it looks like you're either shrinking back, right? You're intimidated, or you're puffing up to try to prove yourself, right? Either way, you're not just giving yourself permission to just be authentically you, take up the space that is given for you, but it's constantly it wavers based on what's around you or what you're measuring against internally, right? You're either bigger than, or you're bigger than and better than, or you are not enough and you're less than, right? Either way, you're always dependent on something outside of you. And that's the outside is making the inside feel a little bit wobbly, right? Or a little unsatisfied, a little bit discontent. And you become alone in that, right? Because whenever you either have to be better than or less than, we never can quite just connect with someone because we're constantly measuring up. We're constantly kind of having our eye. Are we enough? Are we accepted here? Are we not enough? Are we not accepted here? Like how am I measuring up? How am I doing? But it's never just that knowing, that internal knowing. It tends to be based on something outside of us. So you've given all of your own power, your own value, your own identity to something outside of you. And that is exhausting. And it's just, I can tell you, it just spirals into this just never good fruit. So I want you to think about the fruit that comes from this kind of measuring: overwhelm, right? Discontentment, over functioning, right? Insecurity, imposter syndrome, people pleasing. And relationally, too, I want you to think about this. Because even if you've hit all the milestones and externally you've like hit the success and you've done all the things, right? And you're maybe ahead of the game, ahead of the industry, ahead of the curb there, relationally, does it ever feel alone? Does it ever feel like isolating? If I hear one more time, it is lonely at the top, I'm going to scream because it doesn't have to be that way. And I want you to think about why that might be because relationally, right, it can move you into isolation because honestly, it's not safe when you think this way. It's not safe for you to be in connection with someone else because your identity's on the line based on what that other person thinks or what you think about that other person, right? Relationally, it can and turn into isolation. It can turn into like where you're disconnected from the people, or it's just surface level relationships. It's surface level friendships. You can never really go deep, right? But you're doing it to yourself because you're constantly thinking of yourself on this vertical measuring stick, and that just puts a lot of pressure on any relationship. So, how do we fix this? I want to introduce to you the horizontal measuring stick. And by the way, this is not something new. This is actually how we were created, right? What if we were just measuring all wrong this whole time? This vertical measuring stick, what if that was never a thing? What if that was just something, a lie that we bought into in our own brains? I want you to think about measuring on a horizontal measuring stick, okay? What if it's not vertical at all? What if it's horizontal? What if we are all equal? Now, we are different, but we are still equal. I have never seen this more true and play out in my life since I we have adopted twins. Obviously, right? Twins are so similar. They are so equal. But I have two twins and they cannot be more different. And this concept of equal but different comes to play like in my face all day, all day, every day, so many times, right? We are equal, but very different. And how many times when you see a difference, when you see how you are different than someone else, or when you see how someone else is different than you, all of a sudden, whoop, that measuring stick goes back to vertical instead of horizontal. Because sometimes we make different mean something bad. We mean different means something is wrong. We mean different is equal to not enough, right? Or better than or worse than. And all of a sudden we make it a problem. But what if that was the key? What if we celebrated our differences? What if we celebrated our uniqueness? Because it is not related to our value. It's not related to our worth. It's not related to our enoughness. Do you see where I'm going here? We are all created in God's image. This is how I know that it was designed, right, as a horizontal measuring stick instead of a vertical one, because way back, right, in the Bible in Genesis, God created humans in his image, and he didn't just say they're good, right? When God created humans, he said they are very good. And that is all of us humans, right? Like, yes, we are better than all the rest of the creation, but we are equal. All of humanity. It's like the great equalizer, right? Also, right, the Bible says God shows no partiality. He doesn't have favorites. right? He created us different, but equal. The Bible says everyone has fallen short. That means there is no one perfect, right? Other than Jesus. There is no one perfect. No one has their stuff together. No one has made it. No one has reached perfection, right? All have fallen short. We all need grace. We are all part of one body, right? It talks about the body of Christ and it talks about how we are different, we have different roles, but we are all equal and we all need each other. So imagine when I think of this, I think of like a big net, right? Like we're all like these different threads. And when we're all like connected, interconnected with each other, and we're all like having each other's back, and I show up for your weaknesses here and you show up for my weaknesses here, and we're not threatened by each other. We're not trying to like one up each other on this vertical measuring stick, but instead, right, we're all having each other's back in our unique, different ways, right? When we're doing that, it's like this big net, this big safety net. And guess what? When you don't show up fully you, because you're so worried about someone else and you're so worried about not enough and you're so worried about imposter syndrome and or you're so worried about being too big and being too much, you leaving a big hole in the net, right? What if we were to all just show up authentically us, right? Not worried about who's better than and who's less than and shrinking back or puffing up, but really like, okay, this is my fingerprint in the world. That's your fingerprint in the world. How can I support you? How can you support me? Do you see the difference there when it's like this horizontal safety net? We all carry the weight differently, right? But we're all equally valuable. There it is again, right? Equal but different. Not one person is better. No part of the body is optional, right? And in fact, when you shrink back, there's a big hole that is left, right? It leaves a hole when you don't show up fully, authentically yourself, unapologetically, right? So it's not about who does more. It's about how are you being authentically you? How are you showing up? I like to call it the biggest version of you, not the loudest, not the like biggest in a way of like proving yourself or puffing up, but just blooming like the flower that you are, right? Turning you up, you authentically you, turn the volume up, your version, right? Because there is only one. And I know some of this sounds cliche, but I'm hoping that you can see that it's true, it's real, right? And we mess it up whenever we try to put that horizontal measuring stick vertically. So when you start, oh my goodness, I want to give an example of this. You know, so I saw this like this true synergy, right? This true like safety net. I was on a team once and we were raising money for a charity. And it was beautiful to watch everyone naturally go into their giftings and their strengths, right? And guess what? When we all did that, naturally, there was no holes. So a great example of this, right, was so when we were given the assignment, right, we were given the goal, we were given the timeline, I naturally went to, ooh, this is how I can help, right? So for me, it was I do not mind. I have a lot of friends and family and acquaintances that are financially well off. And I love raising money, especially for charities that I care deeply about. Like I am unapologetic about asking for money, especially when it is something I believe in and I am like fully aligned with. And so I went to work calling up people, right? On the phone, calling people up, asking for money. And I saw other people go right into their giftings. They maybe didn't have, they're like, I don't have a ton of contacts. But you know what they did do? They went to work organizing all the money that came in. They went to work with like doing all the numbers, doing all the math, keeping us all updated. And you know what? I bet you, well, I know for a fact that if I would have had to have done that for hours, I would have pulled my hair out because that is not in my gifting. That is not in my strength. That is not how I can authentically show up at my best. It would not have been fun for me at all. And I would care to bet that the same is true for the numbers people, right? I even believe I remember one of them saying, "Oh my goodness, how are you so bold to call these people up out of the blue? How are you so bold to just ask for money all unapologetically?" And I said, "Listen, I am so glad you are doing what you do, and I'll keep doing what I can do." Like that is a beautiful example of how when we're all equal, right? My job was not more important. We would not have got the job done if one person, right, would have been insecure in their own giftings or like been like, oh man, like I'm no good at this, like I can't contribute a lot, wah wah wah, right? When we get in our own heads about it, let's just get focused. Let's get the job done, right? Another great example is my marriage. So many times, right, traditionally, in our culture, right? There's traditional roles typically, although we're pushing against those a lot, right? Like where the woman does the cooking and the woman does the cleaning, right? The man does the working. Now, again, this is a broad stroke and a lot of things have changed, but in my house, my husband is a much better cook than me. And you know what else? He enjoys cooking. Right? And so if I were to try to jump into his, right? Or based on the outside world, what they say I should do, right? Or I'm only good enough if I show up in my marriage like my friends show up in their marriage. No, every single marriage is different. Every single relationship is different. If it works and if cooking gives him energy and it drains me, then he gets to do the cooking. So there's just a couple examples of when we don't get in our own heads and start putting our enoughness and our identity and our value on the line, things actually work when we just let ourselves be, when we truly tap into our authentic selves unapologetically. So, when you start believing and you start living into this, your experience completely changes, right? I mean, you just start to celebrate you unapologetically. And not just that, you get to start celebrating other people, not feeling threatened by other people because there is enough room for everyone, right? There is freedom, there is play. You get to start being you, but being you bigger, right? Not louder, not in a puff up way, but you just get to start being you unapologetically. You're not shrinking back or apologizing for who you are, right? And you're also not threatened by someone else's. So you give them just the space to be them. And self acceptance happens in here, right? Accepting other people exactly where they're at, exactly how they are, because it's not about comparison, right? It's no longer about, okay, well, if you're doing that, then there's not enough space for me or vice versa. Right? There's acceptance, there's grace in this, there's authenticity in this, there's curiosity, there's joy, right? I mean, I just, when I was doing that fundraising that fun when I was on the team or the for the fundraiser, I was just straight up giddy. I could feel the synergy. There was so much joy because I just got to do everything I got to do, and I knew my team was doing what they were good at, and together we were going to create something huge. There's trust, right? There's unity, there's connection in this because there's no longer this fear, this threat of I'm not going to be enough or I'm being too much and like all of this insecurity. You don't have to prove anything. You are not late, right? You are not behind. Like just consider like what is the rush when you're feeling unstable, when you're feeling unsettled, right? What is the rush? What is the hurry? What is it that is threatened? You're not broken. You just are, right? You're just you're just being. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I have an event coming up next week that I want to talk to you more about. So stay tuned for the very end. Here are a couple practical steps. If you start to see yourself into comparison, looking side to side, right? Like wondering, questioning your enoughness, questioning your uniqueness, your authenticity. Here are a couple ways to nip it. Number one thing that always helps me is to remember that no one has it all together. Like, seriously, no one. There have been people that I used to put on a pedestal, and I still have so much respect for them. But have you ever, like, put someone on a pedestal and then, like, the curtain gets put back, and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, they make mistakes too. Oh, wow, they're a human too. Right? I know that was anytime someone puts me on a pedestal, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Listen here. I am not the person to be put on the pedestal because ultimately, right, we are all equals. Jesus is the standard, right? And isn't that the biggest human equalizer, right? When we start to look side to side and comparing ourselves to other humans, right? Or again, comparing ourselves to our own human standards, our own expectations, our own like thoughts and ideas of where we should be and what results we should have by now and the timeline and all of that, right? Just bring Jesus into the picture, right? And that is the best equalizer of all. Okay, so I like to remember, this is like one of my mantras. Anytime I start to maybe feel intimidated, I remind myself, you know what? Person puts their pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. That person does not have it all together. I guarantee you, right? Any human, no matter what level of success they have reached, I promise you, they still make mistakes day in and day out, right? They are still on a journey of sanctification too, right? Like they, no matter what, and that belief right there, that idea, that thought of like no one has it all together, wow, like that really allowed me to appreciate and actually respect people more. Like, yeah, they're doing amazing things. And, you know, nobody has it all together. And it helps keep myself humble too, right? Anytime I hit a milestone or something I'm really proud of, right? Or if I start to puff up myself, right? I have to remember to listen. You don't have it all together. You still make mistakes day in and day out too. And so just that, anytime I find myself starting to go into intimidation or comparison mode, right? I just remember, yeah, nobody's got it all together. Everybody's poop stinks, right? Like everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. And that brings that measuring stick from a vertical one to a horizontal one. And in that, believe it or not, ironically, that allows you the space to accept them, respect them, appreciate their strengths, right? Because it's no longer about comparison. You're no longer like measuring you to them. So that is one of the big practical steps, like just a good go-to that you can go to kind of quickly. Another one, where did I put it? Where did I put it? My notes here are getting mixed up. Okay, another one, if I start to feel right? Or like discouraged, go into gratitude. Go into gratitude. Just start writing down the things you are thankful for. Start writing down, like look back, zoom out over the last 6 months, over the last year, over the last 10 years, and just recount all the things that God has done in your life. Recount all the things that you have now that you prayed for years ago, right? Go into gratitude because I guarantee you when we get overly focused on what we don't have, when we go into scarcity, right? And lack and all the places that we want to be, I guarantee you, right, when your perspective goes there, you are all of a sudden blinded. It's like your blind spot of all the things that are happening right here, right now that you already have. So look backwards and write out all the things, like how far you have come, all the wins, right? As well as just gratitude for what you have right here, right now. That's a great number two practical step of shifting out of this vertical to horizontal measuring stick. A third one is instead of looking outside of you for your answers, I want you to look inside of you. Okay. So many times it can be really tempting, especially with social media, especially with, just so much um, with technology just being able to influence us so much that we didn't have that problem, right? 50, 100 years ago. Like I want you to just really go internally. If that means turning some things off externally, then do so, right? Be aware of the voices that you allow into your ears, into your eyes, right? And go internally. What? Because that is where you're going to find your differences, your uniqueness, right? I said equal but different. How are you unique, right? What do you think about this thing, right? Instead of like looking outside of you and polling the people outside of you or polling social media or the influencers outside of you, like what do you think about this? What feels right for you? Even if it's different than things outside of you, what are true to your values? Like what matters to you? What do you think about this? What do you feel about this? Because that right there, right, is going to give you the self-trust. And as a Christian, right, it's not just you, right? You're tapping into God in you. And those are the best answers when you can quiet out the external noise and look internally. And then the last one, right? Like just stay in your lane. If someone is doing something amazing, you can know that you are on a horizontal measuring stick when you are like their best cheerleader and you mean it, right? Like cheer for them, but don't make it about you because it isn't about you. You are equal but different. You have your own flavor of amazing. It is your own secret sauce. So I want you to practice looking internally and start developing your secret sauce, right? Versus trying to make a knockoff of the people outside of you. Okay. There's a couple practical steps. Now, before I talk about the reset coming up next week, I just want to just remind you, okay? You are not behind. You are not lacking. Your enoughness is not up for debate, right? God already settled all of that. You don't need to strive. You don't need to shrink. You get to stand, right? Just fully loved, fully you, fully authentic, fully valued, right? That is your sweet spot. Now, one way to challenge this, if you find yourself on the vertical measuring stick, right? One way to challenge this is to actually not jump into the spiral of doing more, of trying to put yourself up on the stick, right? And keep trying to do more, do more, do more to hustle for your value and to hustle for your worthiness. I want you to challenge it. And that's what we're doing next week. So from June 30th to July 4th, I am doing, it's called the Permission to Be Soul Reset. It is 7 days in your everyday normal life, but we are going to practice just being. Okay? I want you to know that more doesn't equal more valuable, right? Doing more doesn't add to your value. You are already valuable. You are already worthy, right? Because God says so, because Jesus said so, right? And so being able to shift out of that spiral, that temptation to want to jump on and hustle and try to prove, right? We're going to challenge it next week by not allowing you to do more, right? What we're going to do is just give you permission to be. And it is not about adding more to your list. It is not about, okay, now you got to do an hour quiet time. Okay, now you got to do so much time in the Bible. You got to do this. You got to do all these spiritual disciplines. No. It is about what I talked about earlier, when it is just acknowledging and just noticing the beauty that is already within you, that is already next to you, that you already have. Nothing will change if then, right? More doesn't change anything. It is already there. And so next week, we're going to do just very small, like Zoom teachings and Zoom discussions where we can talk about this. I'm going to have daily prompts for you where you can actually practice what does it mean to just be, right? It doesn't need a whole lot of more stuff, right? That's the beauty of this next week. It's a reset for you to really start to look at, yeah, I don't actually need to do all these things. I don't need to check everything off my list. I don't need to clean the dishes every night with a clean sink to feel okay. I can have peace despite all of that stuff. And that's what next week is going to be about. So, if you would like to join me, comment, all right? Comment BE, and I will get you the information. I will get you the whole schedule and everything that's going on. And I am so excited because it's not about doing more. It's actually about just being right in your messy, everyday, busy life. Okay. So if that's you, comment B. I will reach out. I'll get you all the information. And I can't wait to see and talk to you directly on Zoom, face to face, and watch how that shift changes everything. All right. I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.